Picture the last photo his mother has of him. He's 18 years old. Blue swim trunks, sunglasses pushed up on his forehead. He's on a boat, laughing at something just off camera. The kind of laugh that doesn't know yet that it's being remembered for the wrong reason. That photo was taken on the 4th of July. By midnight, that same photo was on Facebook, shared by a mother who was no longer celebrating anything. She was pleading, because somewhere between the boat pulling away from Horn Island and the boat pulling into the mainland dock, her son simply wasn't on it anymore. No struggle. No witness who saw him go under. No goodbye. Just an empty space where an 18-year-old used to be sitting. This is the disappearance of Nolan Wells, and the question at the center of it isn't who did this to him. There's no suspect here, no interrogation room, no lie to catch. The question is simpler and somehow harder. How does a healthy young man vanish in broad daylight in front of people who loved him on one of the busiest boating days of the entire year, and nobody sees it happen? Horn Island sits about 10 miles off the Mississippi coast. It's not a resort. There are no restaurants, no docks with vendors, no lifeguard towers. It's 144 square miles of barrier island, sand, scrub pine, and water on every side, accessible only by boat. For most of the year, it's quiet enough to feel untouched. The 4th of July is not most of the year. On Independence Day, Horn Island transforms. Boaters from across the Gulf Coast anchor along its shorelines. Incident Commander Josh Gill, who would later coordinate the search for Nolan, put the scale of it plainly. On a normal weekend, the island might see a scattering of boats. On the 4th of July, that number climbs into the hundreds, sometimes past 1,000. Somewhere inside that crowd of holiday boats was Nolan Wells, out with friends, doing exactly what thousands of other people were doing that day: swimming, sunbathing, celebrating. At approximately 3 p.m., Nolan was seen on the island. That is the last confirmed sighting anyone has of him alive. The group eventually loaded back onto their vessel to head home. It was only once they were underway, or shortly after, that someone realized Nolan wasn't aboard. Here's the detail that should stop you cold. On an island with 1,000 boats around it, on a day built entirely around being seen, Nolan Wells disappeared without anyone actually watching it happen. Think about what it means to notice someone missing on a boat. There's a moment, a head count, a wait, where's Nolan? And in that moment, the entire day changes shape. The group searched, they called out, they waited for him to surface, to swim up laughing at the panic he'd caused. That's what you tell yourself in the first few minutes. He's fine, he's just messing around. The sun kept moving. By the time it set over the Mississippi Sound, he's fine had quietly become something else, something nobody wanted to say out loud yet. By midnight, 9 hours after he was last seen, Nolan still hadn't turned up. His mother, Christine, made the call no parent wants to make. She reported her son missing to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, and then she did something else. She got on social media herself. She posted his photo, the blue swim trunks, the sunglasses, the boat, and she asked strangers on the internet to help her find her child. Notice what that tells you about the timeline. This wasn't a family waiting patiently for professionals to handle it. This was a mother who understood, instinctively, that every hour mattered more than the last, and that a viral post might move faster than a dispatch call. Word reached the United Cajun Navy, a Louisiana-based volunteer search and rescue organization, built for exactly this kind of emergency. Josh Gill took command of the response. What happened next moved fast. Within 30 to 45 minutes of the family's call, the Cajun Navy had boats in the water. 2 drones were in the air. Searchers were on foot, working the island itself. Gill later described the geography that made this search especially difficult. Nolan was last seen on the northwest corner of Horn Island, a stretch of coastline that sits in a pass between 2 islands. That's not just scenery, that's tidal water, funneled and squeezed between 2 land masses, moving with a force that isn't obvious from the surface. The conditions that day looked deceptively calm, light swells, maybe a foot high, the kind of water that looks safe enough to let your guard down around. But Gill explained what that calm surface can hide. In a tidal pass, wind and wave action can combine with the current to change the water rapidly, especially in shallow areas close to shore. The water you waded into 10 minutes ago is not necessarily the water that's there now. This is the detail investigators keep coming back to. Not a storm, not visibly dangerous water. just a pass between two islands doing what tidal passes do, quietly, without warning, to someone who had no reason to expect it. By the next morning, this was no longer a small operation. Search crews expanded to 4 boats. A fixed-wing aircraft joined the effort, flying grid patterns over the water and shoreline starting around 6:30 a.m. The kind of methodical, inch-by-inch coverage used when searchers are no longer hoping for a quick answer, but preparing for a long one. Gill described working directly with Christine during this stretch, and what he said about her says something about what grief looks like when it's forced to function. She was understandably frantic, he said, but she remained extremely calm when providing information. He asked her hard questions no mother wants to answer about her missing child, and every answer she gave was aimed at one thing only: helping searchers narrow down where to look. That's the human anchor of this story. Not a woman falling apart. A woman holding herself together by sheer will, because falling apart wouldn't bring her son home. Meanwhile, the Cajun Navy turned to the same tool that had helped a stranger's post reach Christine in the first place: the internet. They released Nolan's last known location, a description of what he was wearing, and his photograph. It went viral, fast. Tips poured in. People began independently searching 3 separate locations, based on information from the public. Ordinary people, hundreds of miles away in some cases, refreshing a Facebook post and trying to help find a teenager they'd never met. The search continued into its second day, methodical and relentless. Boats on the water, an aircraft in the sky, a community of strangers still watching, still hoping. Then, near the northwest corner of Horn Island, close to the exact location where Nolan had last been seen, a body was found. The Cajun Navy's aircraft was airborne at the moment of the discovery. Authorities have not confirmed identity through official public statements, citing an active and open investigation, but the location, the timeline, and the circumstances point to the outcome everyone had spent nearly 2 days trying to prevent. Gill was careful in what he would say. He declined to discuss any conversations with witnesses or Nolan's friends who had been on the trip. He did say he did not believe any of them remained on the island after the group's initial excursion, a detail that rules out one theory without confirming another. What's left is not a solved case. It's a location, a body, a family, and an investigation that, as of now, has not told the public exactly what happened in the water off Horn Island on the 4th of July. There is no suspect in this case, and it's worth sitting with why that matters. Most disappearances that end this way get filed under one of 2 categories almost immediately by the public: foul play or a preventable accident someone should have seen coming. Nolan Wells's case resists both. Gill's description of the pass between the 2 islands points towards something environmental, the kind of danger that doesn't announce itself. Tidal passes are notorious in coastal search and rescue work precisely because they defy visual inspection. A 1-foot swell tells you nothing about what's happening in the current 3 feet below the surface. Shallow water near a pass can shift from ankle deep to a channel with real pull in the space of a few yards, and a strong swimmer can be caught in that transition without ever realizing the water had changed underneath him. That's not carelessness. That's the specific, quiet cruelty of water that looks like it's on your side. There's also a crowd psychology worth naming here. On a day with 1,000 boats near one island, the assumption of safety in numbers can actually work against a missing swimmer. Everyone assumes someone else is watching. Everyone assumes the person in the water is with their own group, doing their own thing. The very crowd that should have made Nolan more visible may have made him easier to lose. None of this is a diagnosis. It's a set of open possibilities, because the investigation itself remains open. What we can say is this: the geography Gill described, a tidal pass, shallow water, rapid current shifts, is a documented, well-understood hazard in coastal search and rescue circles. Whether it explains what happened to Nolan is something only the ongoing investigation can confirm. What this leaves unresolved is the only honest place to end. Nobody has said, on the record, exactly how those final minutes unfolded. And until they do, this remains a tragedy without a clean explanation. Just a young man, a pass between 2 islands, and a family waiting for the truth to catch up to their grief. Josh Gill said something at the end of this search that's worth repeating exactly, because it's the closest thing this case has to a thesis statement. Every life matters to us. It doesn't matter race, creed, color, religion, or nationality. We want every family to know we're putting every bit of effort into bringing their loved ones home. They brought Nolan home, just not the way anyone was praying for. What's left is an open investigation, a family that deserves specifics they don't yet have, and a stretch of water off the northwest corner of Horn Island that looked, on the 4th of July, like nothing more than a good day to be near the Gulf. Gil asked the public to keep this case alive, not for clicks, not for a viral cycle that peaks and disappears, but because a family is still waiting for the truth to actually come out. So here's the question this case leaves you with, because it doesn't have a tidy answer yet. How many other calm days on the water are hiding the same kind of current, the kind you can't see until it's already too late? If you know anything about what happened on Horn Island on July 4th, the Jackson County Sheriff's Office wants to hear from you. Remember to subscribe for more true crime stories. Rest easy, Nolan.